The train screeched to a halt at Maple Station, its metallic groan echoing through the stillness of the early evening. Passengers shuffled aboard, their faces blanketed with the weariness of the day. Among them was an elderly woman, her slight frame cloaked in a faded blue cardigan and a neatly tied scarf over her silvery hair. She carried a small woven bag that sagged slightly under its weight, perhaps groceries or knitting supplies. With slow, deliberate movements, she made her way to an empty seat near the middle of the car. Her hands rested lightly on the bag as her gaze settled on the world outside. Her weathered face bore lines etched by time and trials, yet her soft, unwavering expression exuded a quiet strength. The other passengers scarcely noticed her. Most were absorbed in their own worlds, scrolling through phones or staring vacantly at the advertisements plastered above the windows. The train jolted forward, its rhythm lulling the car into a kind of subdued hum. Yet, beneath this ordinary moment, a lesson was waiting to unfold, one no one could have anticipated. At the next stop, the doors slid open with a mechanical hiss. A burst of laughter spilled into the train as a group of 5 teenagers stepped aboard, their energy loud and intrusive. They carried skateboards and backpacks, their voices cutting through the subdued atmosphere like a sharp wind. They lingered near the entrance for a moment, scanning the train car as though hunting for a target. One of them, a tall boy with a shaggy mop of blonde hair, pointed toward the elderly woman and smirked. "Hey, check her out," he said, his voice carrying just enough volume to ensure everyone could hear. The others exchanged mischievous glances, their laughter low but threatening. They sauntered down the aisle, their presence commanding attention and creating unease. Passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some pretending not to notice, others glancing nervously at the elderly woman, who remained calm and composed. The boy with the blonde hair stopped a few feet from her. "Hey, Grandma," he called out, feigning sweetness. "Where you headed? Bingo night?" The others snickered, emboldened by his mockery. Another teen, shorter with a baseball cap turned backward, leaned on the pole nearest to her. "What's in the bag?" he asked, his tone dripping with faux curiosity. "Got some cookies for us?" The elderly woman said nothing, her eyes fixed on the passing scenery. Her silence seemed to irritate them, prompting another boy, a wiry one with a hoodie pulled tightly over his head, to step closer. "She's probably hard of hearing," he said with a grin. "Or maybe she's just too scared to talk." More laughter erupted, but it was laced with an edge of nervousness now. The woman remained still, her hands resting gently on her back. Her calm was unsettling, as though she carried a secret they couldn't quite decipher. "Hey, we're talking to you," the blonde boy pressed, leaning in closer. "Don't you know it's rude to ignore people?" For the first time, the woman turned her gaze toward them. Her eyes, clear and piercing, locked onto the blonde boy's with an intensity that stopped him mid-sentence. She tilted her head slightly, her voice soft but firm when she finally spoke. "Do you always speak to your elders this way?" The question wasn't loud, but it carried weight. It sliced through the laughter like a blade, leaving a sudden, uncomfortable silence in its wake. The other passengers looked up now, their curiosity piqued. The blonde boy recovered quickly, his smirk returning though it seemed forced. "We're just messing around," he said with a shrug. "Don't take it so seriously, Grandma." The woman's gaze didn't waver. "Messing around can turn dangerous if you're not careful," she said evenly. "I've seen it happen before." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. One of the teens, the smallest of the group, shifted uncomfortably, glancing between his friends. "Come on, let's just leave her alone," he muttered. But the blonde boy wasn't ready to back down. "What's she gonna do?" he scoffed, gesturing toward her small frame. "She's just an old lady." The woman leaned forward slightly, her hands still resting on the bag. "You think strength is about size?" she asked, her voice calm but commanding. "Let me tell you a story." The train rattled on, but the car had gone eerily quiet. Even the hum of conversations and the clicking of phones had ceased as every ear tuned in. "When I was younger, I wasn't much bigger than you," the woman began, her tone even but laced with memory. I worked in the fields with my family, harvesting crops under a scorching sun. It was hard work, backbreaking, unrelenting. But we did it because we had to. Not for ourselves, but for each other. Her eyes swept over the group, her gaze sharp and unwavering. Strength isn't about tearing others down to feel powerful. It's about standing tall when life tries to knock you down. It's about lifting others when they're too weak to stand on their own. The blond boy shifted uneasily, his bravado faltering. The other teens exchanged awkward glances, their earlier confidence draining away. You boys, she continued, have so much ahead of you. Don't waste it on foolishness. Respect others, not because they demand it, but because it shows the kind of person you are. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was filled with reflection, the kind that sinks deep into the soul. As the train slowed for the next stop, the elderly woman rose to her feet with a grace that belied her years. She turned to the teenagers, her expression softening. Remember this, she said, her voice gentle but firm. Kindness and respect will take you further than cruelty ever will. With that, she stepped off the train, her small bag swinging gently at her side. The doors closed behind her, leaving the teenagers standing in the aisle, their bravado replaced with visible discomfort. The other passengers began murmuring among themselves, some nodding in agreement, others stealing glances at the teens. The blond boy sat down, his face flushed, and the others followed suit, their earlier energy now subdued. The train continued its journey, but the atmosphere had changed. Where there had been tension and mockery, there was now quiet reflection. And perhaps, just perhaps, the lesson imparted by the quiet strength of one elderly woman would stay with those boys, shaping how they carried themselves in the world.